Florida retirement. You hear that phrase and your brain probably goes straight to overpriced condos in Miami, retiree communities where the HOA fines you for breathing wrong, or those massive 55-plus developments where every house looks identical and costs $500,000 minimum. Here's what nobody tells you. That's coastal Florida. That's the Florida everyone knows about. But drive 2 hours inland, away from the beaches, away from the retirement industrial complex, and you'll find a completely different state. We're talking raw land selling for $17,000 an acre, zero state income tax eating into your Social Security or pension, and legal loopholes in the building code that let you construct a tiny home, run it entirely off solar power, drill your own well, and never connect to the grid. This isn't some survivalist fantasy. It's backed by Florida statute. The state protects renewable energy systems by law. Counties in the rural interior have no minimum square footage requirements for houses. And if you buy land where utility lines don't reach what's legally called the off-grid hole, you're not required to connect to anything. You can live completely independently, and it's all above board. 15 Florida towns where retirees are doing exactly this. Some offer the cheapest land in the state and maximum freedom to build however you want. Others balance affordability with serious healthcare infrastructure, because getting sick in the middle of nowhere isn't romantic, it's dangerous. Here are 15 affordable Florida towns where you can live off-grid comfortably. Bristol. Bristol sits in Liberty County, which is consistently named one of the best places in Florida for off-grid living. Not because it's trendy or because there's some hippie commune energy, because it's genuinely rural, genuinely cheap, and the local government isn't interested in micromanaging what you build. Raw land here averages $18,750 per acre for small parcels under 2 acres. That's cheaper than a used car in some states. Liberty County has low population density, which means fewer restrictions and a higher chance your parcel falls into that off-grid hole where utility hookup mandates don't apply. Liberty County's septic permitting process transitioned to the Department of Environmental Protection in January of 2025. That streamlines environmental review for advanced septic systems, which is one of the biggest hurdles when you're trying to legally manage waste off-grid. Faster permitting means less bureaucratic delay, which translates to lower holding costs while you're waiting to build. The trade-off is isolation. Bristol is not near anything. Tallahassee is your closest supply hub, and even that requires a drive. You're not walking to a farmer's market or popping into a clinic. This is for retirees who want maximum autonomy and are willing to accept that healthcare access means planning ahead and staying healthy. But if your priority is control over your land, your build, your systems, Liberty County gives you that. And it does it cheaper than almost anywhere else in the state. And if you think $18,000 per acre is low, wait till you see what happens when counties drop minimum dwelling size requirements entirely. Trenton. Trenton is the county seat of Gilchrist County, and Gilchrist has formalized something most rural counties just tolerate. They explicitly allow owner-builders to act as their own contractor under Florida Statute 489.103, subsection 7. That statute is the financial game changer. General contractors typically add 15 to 25% overhead to construction costs. Cutting that out means a build that would have cost $80,000 suddenly costs $60,000. That's the difference between affordable and impossible for a lot of retirees on fixed income. But here's the kicker. Gilchrist County imposes no minimum size requirement for 1 or 2 family dwellings. As long as your home meets the Florida Building Code's interior requirements, 70 square feet minimum for habitable rooms, 7-foot minimum horizontal dimension, you're good. That means you can legally build a tiny home under 400 square feet. Not a shed you're pretending is a house. An actual code-compliant dwelling with plumbing, electrical, the works. The county explicitly permits this. It's not a gray area. You file for permits, you build to code, you get inspected, and you're done. No one's showing up later telling you it's too small or demanding you add square footage to satisfy some arbitrary county aesthetic. Land prices in Gilchrist are comparable to Liberty County, still in that sweet spot under $20,000 per acre. But you also get proximity to Gainesville, which is huge. Gainesville has the University of Florida's medical system, which means if you do need specialized care, it's accessible. you're not 2 hours from a real hospital. Trenton works because it combines regulatory flexibility with reasonable access to resources. You can homestead, you can build small and cheap, and you're not completely cut off from modern infrastructure. That balance is rare. Madison. Madison sits near the Georgia border and represents the kind of regulatory accommodation that makes off-grid builds financially viable. Madison County lists average land prices at $18,750 per acre for parcels under 2 acres, which keeps it in the same affordability tier as Liberty and Gilchrist. The distinction here is versatility in housing types. Madison County shows flexibility regarding mobile homes and manufactured structures, which is critical if you need to get on the land immediately while you're building out your primary residence. You can drop a used mobile home on the property for $10,000 or $15,000, live in it while you're drilling your well and installing solar, and then either keep it as a guest structure or sell it off once your main build is done. This isn't glamorous, it's pragmatic. A lot of retirees don't have unlimited cash sitting around. Being able to phase your build, buy land, move into temporary shelter, slowly install infrastructure, makes the whole project manageable instead of overwhelming. Madison is also positioned near the state line, which gives you cross-state access if you need to source materials or services from Georgia. That sounds minor until you're trying to find a specific well drilling contractor or a solar installer who actually knows what they're doing. Options matter. The trade-off is basic amenities. Madison is a county seat, so it has services, but it's still small. You're getting tranquility and low cost, not walkable downtown districts or a thriving arts scene. That's fine if you're retired and your priority is independence over entertainment. And if Madison feels too remote, the next town proves you don't always have to choose between isolation and infrastructure. Perry. Perry is the county seat of Taylor County in the Big Bend region, and it offers a balance that's harder to find elsewhere. Rural isolation with access to the Gulf Coast. You're far enough inland to avoid the worst hurricane risk, but close enough to coastal resources that you're not completely cut off. The legal framework is standard for self-sufficient builds. Solar power and water systems are permitted, and if your parcel isn't served by utilities, you're legally clear to operate independently. What makes Perry notable is lower crime rates compared to urban cores. Deep rural areas often trend safer simply because population density is low and there's less opportunity for property crime. Data supports this across North Florida's rural counties. The downside is, proximity to the coast introduces flood risk variables. Even inland parcels can have flood zone designations depending on elevation and watershed. That means you need to do serious due diligence before buying. Pull the FEMA flood maps, check elevation certificates, and make sure your parcel isn't going to become a lake during hurricane season. If you clear that hurdle, Perry works. It's affordable, it's quiet, and it's positioned to give you access to Gulf Coast markets and services without the insurance nightmare of beachfront property. But here's where it gets extreme. If you want true isolation, where self-sufficiency isn't optional, it's mandatory, you want Cross City. Cross City! Cross City is the embodiment of the off-grid whole. Dixie County has such low population density that large parts of it simply don't have utility infrastructure. No water lines, no sewer hookups, nothing. That's not a bug, that's the feature. Because Florida law only mandates utility connection if utilities are available, Cross City parcels often fall into that legal gap where you're not just allowed to be self-sufficient, you have to be. There's no grid to connect to even if you wanted to. Here's the safety angle. Cross City, with a population of 1,710, reported only 2 violent crimes in 2019. That's absurdly low. You're not dealing with break-ins or theft at any meaningful rate. The isolation works in your favor. But isolation cuts both ways. Amenities are minimal. There's no bustling downtown, no nearby hospital, no chain grocery stores. You're installing a well, you're going solar, you're managing your own septic or composting toilet system, and you're driving significant distances for anything beyond basic supplies. This is for retirees who are genuinely committed to the lifestyle. If you're testing the waters or you need frequent medical care, Cross City is the wrong choice. But if you want maximum independence and you're willing to accept the logistics, Dixie County delivers. And get this, you can have that same independence without being 2 hours from a hospital. Sebring. Sebring flips the script. It's frequently cited as a premier budget-friendly retirement destination, but the reason it works for off-grid retirees is unusual. Highlands County has over 200 healthcare facilities. That's not a typo. 200. You've got hospitals, urgent care centers, specialty clinics, physical therapy, everything you'd expect in a small city, not a rural county. Land prices average $20,625 per acre for 2 to 5 acre parcels. That's slightly higher than the cheapest counties, but still firmly in the affordable range. And because Highlands County is inland, you're avoiding the hurricane exposure and insurance premiums that destroy coastal budgets. The healthcare density is the strategic advantage. You can buy rural land, build a self-sufficient homestead, and still be 15 or 20 minutes from a full-service hospital. That's the kind of safety net deep rural towns can't offer. If you have a medical emergency, you're not waiting an hour for an ambulance or driving 90 minutes to the nearest ER. Sebring also has lower cost of living compared to major Florida metros and other Sunbelt retirement spots. You're getting financial relief across the board, not just on land, but on groceries, services, and property tax once you apply Florida's homestead exemption. This is the premium strategy. Pay slightly more for land, gain access to infrastructure that deep rural counties simply don't have. For retirees who want independence but aren't willing to gamble on healthcare access, Sebring is the answer. But if you want the absolute cheapest land combined with top-tier emergency care, there's one town that delivers both. Let's talk Wauchula. Wauchula. Wauchula represents the lowest land cost in this entire analysis. $16,875 per acre for 2 to 5 acre parcels. That's it, that's the floor. You're not finding cheaper raw land anywhere in Florida unless you're buying swamp or scrub nobody wants. But here's the twist. Wauchula has Advent Health Wauchula, a critical access hospital with a patient rating of 96 out of 100 for overall care. The average emergency department wait time is 94 minutes, which is nearly 50 minutes faster than the Florida state average of 144 minutes. That efficiency is absurd for a rural hospital. Most critical access facilities are understaffed and overloaded. This one is rated higher than urban hospitals in terms of patient satisfaction and speed. So you're combining the absolute cheapest land with one of the best-rated rural hospitals in the state. That shouldn't be possible. Usually you pick one or the other. Wauchula gives you both. Hardee County is agricultural, which supports self-sufficiency in unexpected ways. There are farm supply stores, local produce markets like Burgeon Farms, and a network of contractors familiar with rural builds. You're not explaining what a composting toilet is to every plumber you call. People here understand off-grid systems because agriculture requires similar infrastructure. The trade-off is minimal nightlife or cultural amenities. Wauchula is small, quiet, and agricultural. If you need urban energy or entertainment options, you're driving to Sebring or further. But if your priorities are cost and healthcare access, Wauchula is unbeatable. And if you think Hardee County is cheap, Lake City is where cost of living drops below the national average entirely. Lake City. Lake City's cost of living is 64% lower than the Florida state average and 12 to 19% below the U.S. national average. That's documented, measurable savings across housing, groceries, utilities, and services. You're not just saving on land, you're saving on everything. Housing costs drive a lot of that difference. While Lake City itself is a regional center with somewhat higher real estate prices, the outlying rural areas offer the same low-cost land found elsewhere in North Florida. The advantage is proximity. Lake City functions as a supply and service hub, which means you have access to licensed contractors, specialized equipment, and building materials without driving 2 hours. That access matters when you're building off-grid. You need well drillers, solar installers, electricians who understand battery systems, and plumbers who can work with alternative water sources. Having those specialists within reasonable distance reduces project timelines and costs. Lake City also provides grocery stores, hardware suppliers, and medical facilities without forcing you to live in town. You can homestead 30 minutes outside the city center and still access everything you need without the logistics nightmare of deep rural isolation. The trade-off is slightly less regulatory flexibility than the frontier counties. You're closer to urbanized areas, which means zoning can be stricter and permit reviews more thorough. But for retirees who want affordable self-sufficiency without total isolation, Lake City hits the balance. Palatka. Palatka sits on the St. Johns River in north-central Florida, and that geographical positioning offers something most inland towns don't: water recreation access. If your version of comfortable retirement includes fishing, kayaking, or just being near navigable water, Palatka delivers. The cost of living remains low compared to coastal Florida or major metros. Land prices in Putnam County's rural areas stay affordable, and you're still within that strategic inland zone where hurricane risk and insurance premiums drop significantly. Healthcare access is solid. The Palatka Healthcare Center holds an overall rating of A- with good hospitalization metrics, which means emergency care is reliable. You're not dealing with a skeleton crew or outdated facilities. It's a functional, well-regarded hospital serving a rural population. The community structure is more established than frontier towns. Palatka has been a regional center for decades, so there's existing infrastructure, contractor networks, and local supply chains. You're not pioneering, you're integrating into a community that already understands rural living and self-sufficient builds. The trade-off is less regulatory flexibility. Putnam County isn't as permissive as Gilchrist or Liberty when it comes to tiny homes or alternative builds. You'll need to confirm zoning carefully and ensure your parcel allows the systems you want to install. But if you're prioritizing lifestyle amenities, river access, established community, reliable healthcare, over maximum construction freedom, Palatka works. And if Palatka offers water access, Avon Park doubles down on Highlands County's healthcare advantage. Avon Park. Avon Park is strategically located near Sebring and shares the same foundational assets: land averaging $20,625 per acre and immediate access to Highlands County's 200-plus healthcare facilities. The advantage is flexibility within the county. Sebring and Avon Park are close enough that you can shop parcels across both areas, comparing prices, zoning, and proximity to specific services. Some retirees prioritize being closer to Sebring's slightly larger downtown. Others want more distance and choose Avon Park's outlying rural areas. Either way, you're locked into the same healthcare safety net. If you need a cardiologist, an orthopedic surgeon, or a specialized diagnostic center, Highlands County has it. That density of medical infrastructure is rare in rural Florida. Avon Park also benefits from lower insurance costs due to inland positioning. You're avoiding the coastal premiums that make retirement unaffordable for a lot of people. Combined with Florida's zero state income tax and property tax exemptions, the ongoing cost of living stays manageable even on a fixed income. The trade-off is the same as Sebring: slightly higher land costs compared to the absolute cheapest counties. But you're paying for infrastructure access. That premium is justified if healthcare is non-negotiable. And here's where things get regional. Let's talk Okeechobee. Okeechobee. Okeechobee County is explicitly recognized in regulatory assessments as offering ample land and fewer restrictions for off-grid living. The county's Community Development Department administers and enforces the Florida Building Code and the Local Comprehensive Plan, which creates a clear, predictable regulatory environment. That clarity is valuable. You're not guessing whether your build will get approved or whether some obscure county ordinance will block your permit. Okeechobee County has defined processes, and off-grid builds are part of that process. Proximity to Lake Okeechobee is the lifestyle angle. If you want water recreation, fishing, boating, wildlife observation, Okeechobee delivers. The lake is massive, and the surrounding rural areas offer affordable land with the same inland insurance advantages found elsewhere. The trade-off is moderate amenities. Okeechobee is a small town, not a regional hub. You'll have basic services, but specialized contractors or advanced medical care require travel to larger cities. Still, for retirees who want regulatory clarity and water access alongside self-sufficiency, Okeechobee works, and if you think Okeechobee is isolated, Clewiston takes that isolation and turns it into agricultural opportunity. Clewiston! Clewiston sits on the southern side of Lake Okeechobee in Hendry County, where land averages $20,625 per acre for 2 to 5 acre parcels. Hendry County is dominated by vast agricultural tracts, which increases the likelihood of finding parcels that fall into the off-grid hole. Here's why that matters. Agricultural land is often far from utility service lines. If you're buying a parcel surrounded by sugarcane fields or cattle ranches, there's a good chance water and sewer lines don't reach it. That means you're legally permitted to drill your own well and install your own septic without mandatory utility connection. The agricultural nature of Hendry County also supports self-sufficiency through existing supply chains. You've got farm equipment suppliers, irrigation specialists, and contractors who understand rural infrastructure. If you need a 300-foot well drilled or a solar array installed in the middle of nowhere, Hendry County has people who do that regularly. The trade-off is minimal cultural amenities. Clewiston is agricultural and rural. You're not getting coffee shops, art galleries, or weekend farmers markets. You're getting functional working-class Florida. But if your goal is affordable land and maximum independence, Hendry County delivers both. And here's the weird one: a rural pocket inside an expensive metro. Let's talk Immokalee. Immokalee. Immokalee is the rural interior section of Collier County, which is otherwise dominated by Naples and its luxury real estate market. That contrast creates opportunity. You're homesteading in a low-cost rural area while maintaining proximity to a major metro's infrastructure. Collier County is specifically cited for low population density and easy access to suitable off-grid land. The regulatory requirement is clear: residents must utilize a composite waste disposal system. That's not optional, it's mandated. But here's the advantage: that mandate provides certainty. You know exactly what system you need to install, you know it's approved, and you're not gambling on whether the county will accept your alternative waste solution. Compliance is straightforward. Proximity to Naples means you have access to specialized contractors, advanced building materials, and supply chains that deep rural counties don't offer. If you need a specific solar inverter or a particular well pump, you can source it locally instead of waiting weeks for delivery. The trade-off is higher land costs in some areas and stricter zoning near urban fringes. You need to carefully select parcels in the agricultural or rural interior to avoid Naples-adjacent pricing. But for retirees who want self-sufficiency with metro access, Immokalee is the only option in Southwest Florida. And if Immokalee is a rural pocket in an expensive county, Wewahitchka is the opposite, a collapsing housing market in a rural area. Wewahitchka. Wewahitchka offers a unique entry strategy. Existing home values crashed. The average home value is $203,287, down 5.2% over the last year as of 2025. That's a declining market, which creates opportunity for buyers. Instead of buying raw land and building from scratch, you're buying an existing structure, often dated, sometimes neglected, and retrofitting it for off-grid use. That means adding solar, upgrading insulation, installing a well if one doesn't exist, and converting to an advanced septic system. Raw land in Gulf County is moderately priced at around $60,000 per acre for small parcels, which is higher than the cheapest counties. But the home price collapse offers an alternative entry point. You're buying shelter and land together, often for less than raw land costs elsewhere. The renovation strategy works if you're comfortable with construction projects and can do some of the work yourself using the owner-builder exemption. You're not paying full price for a move-in ready home. You're buying cheap structure and upgrading it over time. The trade-off is project complexity. Retrofitting an older home for off-grid systems is more complicated than building new to-spec. You're dealing with existing plumbing, outdated electrical, and structural issues that weren't designed for solar or alternative water sources. But for retirees with construction experience or a willingness to learn, Wewahitchka offers a path that doesn't require raw land development. And here's the premium option: the highest land cost justified by world-class medical access. Let's talk rural Alachua County. Alachua County. Rural Alachua County represents the opposite end of the affordability spectrum. Farmland prices range from $30,000 to $40,000 per acre, which is double or triple the cheapest counties. But that premium buys proximity to the University of Florida's medical system in Gainesville, which is one of the best in the Southeast. If you're a retiree with existing health conditions or a family history that suggests you'll need specialized care, that proximity is worth paying for. You're minutes from cardiologists, oncologists, neurologists, and advanced diagnostic facilities that rural hospitals simply don't have. The regulatory trade-off is strict zoning. Some agricultural zones require minimum lot sizes of 20 acres, which drives up the total land purchase cost. You're not buying a 2-acre homestead, you're buying a small farm and using part of it for your self-sufficient build. But if healthcare is your top priority and you have the budget for higher land costs, rural Alachua County is the strategic choice. You're balancing independence with access to medical infrastructure that could literally save your life. The trade-off is clear. You pay more upfront, but you eliminate the single biggest risk of rural retirement, being hours away from specialized care when you need it most. 15 towns, 3 tiers, one common thread. Florida's rural interior offers legal, affordable pathways to self-sufficient retirement that most people don't know exist. The cheapest land clusters tightly between $16,875 and $20,625 per acre across Hardy, Liberty, Madison, Hendry, and Highlands counties. That consistency means you're choosing based on trade-offs: regulatory flexibility versus healthcare access, isolation versus community, not just price. The legal framework is clear. Florida statute protects renewable energy systems, counties like Gilchrist eliminate minimum dwelling size requirements, and the owner-builder exemption cuts construction costs by 15 to 25%. Combined with zero state income tax and robust homestead exemptions, the financial structure works. But the real decision is healthcare. Deep rural towns offer maximum freedom and minimum cost, but if you get sick, you're driving an hour or more to reach advanced care. Towns like Wauchula and Sebring prove you don't always have to choose. $16,000 land paired with 96 rated hospitals is rare, but it exists. The infrastructure costs are real. Solar, battery storage, well drilling, and septic installation run $30,000 to $80,000 depending on scale and complexity. Land is cheap. Systems are not. But spread over decades of retirement with no utility bills and minimal property tax, the math works. Florida isn't just coastal condos and retirement communities. 2 hours inland, it's raw land, legal independence, and financial breathing room. You just have to know where to look.